Is a rematch something you'd like to do next?
Of course. I thought it was a close fight still. I would love to rematch. I gave him a shot. It's only right he give me a shot back. He didn't make weight, so I'm still the champion, and we can run it back.
The weight helped him, Bill.
We want a rematch. That's what we do.
Thanks, Bill. There was obviously no titles won tonight, although a lot of street cred. Where is it that you think this win gets you?
People's champion. Nah, no rematch.
Right, you said you was gonna lie.
Wait, did you say no rematch? Did you say no rematch?
Now that the dust finally starts to settle after the Ryan Garcia loss, here is what is next for Devin Haney. Number one, Devin Haney should forget about Gervonta Tank Davis for now because he is clearly out of his league. This loss to Ryan Garcia was a big upset for the boxing world. And I don't think his value as a boxer when it comes to purse size would be respected at this time when even mentioning, trying to do a fight with Tank Davis. This is the worst time to do a fight with Tank Davis. This further goes into the reason Devin Haney really should have tried to stay at 135. This furthers the reason why Devin Haney really should have tried to stay at 135 to make the Tank Davis fight happen. I mean, at all costs. I mean, literally, he should have done that. But obviously the Ryan Garcia fight showed that he wasn't even ready for that fight. So it makes sense why he didn't. Now, what he should be really worried about is how he's going to become undisputed at 140. I believe that's his next move. His next move needs to be how he can become undisputed champ at 140. He needs to lock down the 140 division. He needs to come back stronger than ever and lock down the 140 division. So if he's going to lock down the 140 division, well, who has the belts? Great question. Matias has a belt. He has the IBF. Isaac Cruz has a belt. He has the WBA. Teofimo Lopez has a belt. He has the WBO. And Devin Haney still has a belt, which honestly, had Ryan Garcia stayed at 140 and not went up to 147, I honestly think Devin Haney should have just emailed that belt to Ryan Garcia, even though Ryan Garcia missed weight. Clearly, why would Devin Haney want that belt if he lost that fight, right? It's ethics, moral character type thing. As far as the policy goes, that belt belongs to Devin, but it's the, the fighter mentality. I don't want this belt because I lost, right? This belt was up for grabs in this fight. The only reason I still have this belt is because my opponent missed weight. Yet, my opponent missing weight didn't stop the fight. So it must not have been that important. So that's kind of a weak policy, if you ask me. So who should he fight next then out of those three fighters? If he has a belt, those three fighters have a belt, that's all four belts. I think his next fight, as soon as he gets right, he just had the fight in New York City. Stay in New York City. Get right with the people again, right? Train in New York City. Become popular in New York City. Bring your brand to New York City. Set up in New York City. Go to the NBA games. Go to therapy. Go to physical therapy. Go to mental therapy. Train. Meet some New York City stars. Meet some New York City businessmen. Go have some interviews with some bloggers and podcasters in New York City. Bring your brand image to New York City. Set up. Put it on camera. Do some things. Rent a condo, rent a timeshare, rent a Airbnb or something. Do something, right? Do something in New York City for a while. Here's why. Because you need to make a fight with, or Devin Haney should make a fight with Teofimo Lopez. You see, he's in Teofimo Lopez's territory right now. And when both of them were at 135, that fight was in question. Here's why that fight would make sense now at 140. They have both fought Vasily Lomachenko, except Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko in a more fashionable manner. I mean, levels above. Like Devin Haney in the fight against Teofimo, in the fight against Lomachenko, it was a very competitive fight. Teofimo Lopez made the Vasily Lomachenko fight look easy. So there you go. There's the edge for your next fight. You need to go talk to the takeover and see if you know that fight can happen, because I believe that's your next biggest fight. Plus, he has a belt. So it's not a lost opportunity to get another belt, to further stake your claim on the 140 division and be a two-time undisputed champion. Like, the sky is the limit for you now, Devin. Like, that loss was nothing. You lost against a fighter who does not have any belts. He's literally a YouTube sensation, a social media sensation. He lost against Tank Davis. But see, here's the thing. He lost against Tank Davis making weight at a lower weight. So even that loss is in question, right? Everybody knows Tank Davis washed him. He made him kneel. But still, as far when you on paper, the fight is in question, because you can say, wow, if Ryan Garcia is moving all the way up to welterweight and he had to go down to fight Tank Davis, maybe he just wasn't the right weight for that time. Maybe he was just way underweight and that fight did not make sense, but they made it happen. So ask yourself this one, or Devin Haney should ask himself this one. If Ryan Garcia was able to make weight for a Tank Davis fight, why wasn't he able to hold on to those belts at 135 and do whatever he could to make that fight happen with Tank Davis? But that's neither here nor there. The sky is the limit for Devin Haney. If he is managed in the right way, if he is provided the right marketing campaign, if he is trained in the right way, if his business managers do what they're supposed to do, his brand is literally right where it needs to be. This is the comeback story, but it's not a real comeback story, because he's a great fighter. He's a great fighter. He just lost a battle to somebody who outsmarted him. There are only a few mistakes he made. I'm gonna break down that fight later, but right now, I mean, he couldn't have positioned himself any better. The fighter he just lost to went up. So now, and he still has his belt. So that's one hurdle he doesn't have to cross. He didn't lose the belt. He's gonna try, if he tries to become undisputed, he only needs to collect 3 more belts. That's 3 more fights. Let's make it 4 to 5 fights before he can become undisputed. Right? Two fights maybe are not, title fights, but get sealed a deal on the 3 fights. If you can seal the deal on those 3 fights, I mean, go talk to if he can seal the deal on those 3 fights, right? He has this great relationship, great partnership with Eddie Hearns. If he can seal the deal on those 3 fights, his brand comes back overnight. Forget about Tank Davis. Forget about Tank Davis. Forget about Shakur Stevenson. As far as a Devin Haney is concerned, those fighters don't exist in the boxing world. The only story that matters now is the biggest story in boxing for you, your marketing, is how does Devin Haney come back from a loss against Ryan Garcia? You see, Ryan Garcia just removed himself from the equation because he went up in weight. So you don't have to worry about that. He's not in the division. Not that you couldn't get the rematch and beat him. It's that it doesn't even make sense to even mention his name again. You're just going to live off of that fight. How do you come back from a fight like that? Somebody who lost to the person that you were supposed to fight at 135. The mistakes you made. Stay in New York City. Hunt down Teofimo Lopez. Show the world why, okay, you got clipped. You got clipped by the fighter that got beat by Tank Davis, but what he should do is show the world why the fight with Lomachenko actually mattered more than the fight Teofimo had with Lomachenko. That's literally the next argument. Who beat Lomachenko in a better fashion? Did you carry Lomachenko? Is that why it was so competitive? Did you want to give the fans what they paid for? Could you have beat Lomachenko in a more fashionable way or not? Right? Well, we don't know. We need you to fight Teofimo. But meanwhile, while you're fighting Teofimo, it's a title fight. So if you beat him, now you got 2 belts, and you only have to worry about 2 other fighters who hold belts. So that would be your next move. So, I mean, you could tag it. I mean, Devin Haney could tag it something like the real King of New York, right? You stay in New York, set up shop there, run your campaign in New York. He runs his campaign in New York. And then, you battle Teofimo Lopez for the territory to be considered the real King of New York. Why real King of New York? Because Jay-Z was the King of New York. Nas at one point was the King of New York. 50 Cent could have been considered the King of New York. You see? There has to be a King of New York. Teofimo knows that's his territory. He's the takeover. He's not claiming to be the King of New York. Maybe, maybe not. But I haven't heard him say maybe he has. But all I know for sure is that he's the takeover. He came to take the game over. So if he's coming to take the game over, he has to take you out because you are the game. And then if he lives in New York City, you got to take him out because Devin Haney is going to stake his claim on being, the King of New York. That's a great bill. Next thing, the fight after you secure that belt, if you could secure that belt, if you could beat a Teofimo Lopez, because he's a true champion. He's a warrior. So you got to come on your A game with Teofimo. But if you can beat him and get the WBO, then you can move. Then Devin Haney can move on to securing the WBA. Why the WBA next? If indeed Isaac Cruz still has it, Isaac Cruz is another fighter that lost to Tank Davis. Now, when you fight at Isaac Cruz, of course you make that the point because you need that to be considered. This is a fighter that, Tank Davis beat. But here's the thing. He gave Tank Davis the work. Isaac Cruz gave Tank Davis the work. So you fighting Isaac Cruz at 140 means more than you fighting Ryan Garcia at 140 when it comes to the boxing world, not the pay-per-view world, but the boxing world. Because Isaac Cruz gave Tank Davis the work. And if you can beat Isaac Cruz in a more fashionable manner than Devin Haney, his skill, the skill set question comes back to play or comes back in play. Of course, you're a bigger fighter than he is. He's a small fighter. That was, Isaac Cruz and Tank Davis fighting each other. They're like the same size almost. But still, you need that fight. So you go and you take the WBA from Isaac Cruz if you can, and then you go get the IBF from Matias. Why Matias last? Because he holds the ranking. He holds the ranking for the division. If he still has the belt at that time. He's like right up under you. I mean, I believe they have him ranked like right up under you. I believe they have him ranked right under Devin Haney at the 140 division. He's somewhere in the top 3 with the IBF. So if you seal the deal on that, that's a great fight because now the last but not least fight for Undisputed is being held by the division's top 2 fighters. Now that's a bill. So now you got 3 different bills for your marketing campaign. You see? You got 3 different approaches for, not 3 different approaches, but 3 different builds, right? Like you're building, right? You got 3 different builds for your marketing campaign that can really work. The New York City, then the for the New York City, who's the king of New York, also who beat Lomachenko in a more fashionable way. And then it's going for Isaac Cruz, who beat Isaac Cruz in a more fashionable way. And then Matias, who's the king of the division. And then whoever is the king of the division becomes undisputed because it'll be for all the belts. And there you have it. Devin Haney is now the man again. He's now, not only is he the man again, but he is a 2-time undisputed champion. Now, if Tank Davis is still in a situation where he's being considered the cash cow and that fight still makes sense, then you go make that fight. But, Shakur Stevenson is at 135 now. So the 135 division, between all of those fights you got to have at 140, that's a hot division for Tank Davis. He can't avoid a Shakur Stevenson for very long before the fans start calling for that fight. So, it's a timetable, but one way or the other, you're going to have to fight the winner. If they fight, you got to fight the winner. One way or the other, the Devin Haney fight has to happen. The Devin Haney and either the Shakur Stevenson fight has to happen, or the Devin Haney and the Tank Davis fight has to happen. And I think that is what is next for Devin Haney. But let's say he gets the Tank Davis fight, right? If he gets the Tank Davis fight after becoming undisputed, well, here's why he has to become undisputed to get the Tank Davis fight. Because at 135, he didn't give Tank Davis the opportunity to get the belts at 135. Obviously, the fans know that Tank Davis doesn't want the belts, but Tank Davis, for his record, he needs those belts, right? So he couldn't get those belts. But at 140, if you have all the belts at 140, Tank Davis is probably not going to fight at 140. If he does, it won't be for very long. Remember, he's limited by his size, right? He's another Isaac Cruz. But even though his skill set will carry him a lot further than the Isaac Cruz, still, Tank Davis is limited because His size will limit his weight, and his weight will limit his speed. You see, if he gets too heavy at that height, he won't be as fast. You see, so he has to stay around 140, 135. So if you can give him an opportunity at being an undisputed champ at 140 by having all the belts again, then that fight could take place, since you can't do it at 135 anymore. Then he can also have an opportunity to be a two-time undisputed champion. It'll save him time. He's getting older, so that fight makes sense. But if you don't have, let's say you can't get all the belts, but you have 3. If you have 3, even that fight makes sense, because all he has to do is fight for one more belt at the 140 division. And then after that, if he wants to go back to 135, he just relinquishes the belts and go back down to 135. Obviously, this is being talked about in a vacuum, but it makes sense. Now, if you have 2 belts, then if you can only get 2 belts or 1 belt, or maybe you lose all your belts, well, you got to come up with something. But when you fight a Tank Davis, it won't be at 140. It'll be at best at a catchweight. You're still in the conversation, because you're just one of those guys. You're in the narrative. Right? Devin Haney, he's in the narrative. So if you don't have at least 3 belts, you can't fight Tank. If Devin Haney doesn't have at least 3 belts, it doesn't make sense for him to fight Tank at 140. So why does this plan work for Devin? It sets the record straight about his talent, his skill set, his IQ, and being a top-notch fighter. It gives him his stage back to argue the reason why he should fight Tank Davis. Okay, that's it. Let me know what you think. Comment below. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. Also, follow us on X at Consider This AMC.